Yeah, Duane, I've been following a trend from Paul Twitchell and others in real life. We find the instance where Paul Twitchell differed with Sankapal Singh, who was his master, and who could not recognize uh, the experiences that he was having, that he recorded uh, in that he recorded and wanted to share with Harold. Uh, what can you say about this? Because I have seen even within even within the Kanka circles, you had Fort Johnson who had problems with Harold, and then you again, uh, and I think there are some other silent members, some people who decided to keep the law of silence, just do their thing. So, What do you say about this instance of uh, uh, the student outgrowing the master?
Well, you have to ask the question too, and that is, was there really any master? So again, anybody can say whatever they want, so that's fine. And what is, uh, again, what's the old saying? Life happens. You see, life is happening. And this is the adventure. And, like Robin Hood, I suggest people see the old Errol Flynn movie, Robin Hood. It's great, because he's got a great sense of humor. More so than Kevin Costner. I like the Kevin Costner one too, but the old one with Errol Flynn was cool. You know, it really shows how it is, and it really shows how the boys are. And that is that yes, we're looking at history as a reference. That's really all it is. All history can be so-called recorded history, no matter what it is, no matter what the experiences were. It's just reference, not reality. Learn to see what Paul is now, not what he supposedly was then. Again, most of that is ideas. And so it's nowness. And this is what I constantly refer to people to, especially the membership that, thinks they know everything. And that's fine. They can know whatever they want. Again, nothing is negated. And I simply say, ask Rebazar or Paul right now. Ask them where they are now. What are they seeing now? What are they doing now? You see? So this is where, again, people want to be lullabied with old sound good ideas. Yes, Paul went through so many teachers and whatever, just like you and I. We went to school. Hey, those were teachers and masters. You've got masters there of science and biology and literature and whatever. Those are the old masters, right? Those are, whatever reference you want to create, and that's fine. It's all fine. I just go off the experience I was shown, and I liked the idea, so that's why I chose it as the new man, and that was cool because it was unique. But I had to recognize that to put together. They didn't just tell me it. I recognized how that worked, and it made sense, and it was just a created reference, like Duane the Great Writer. It is a created reference. People need a reference. I need references. Especially when, the police ask me for ID, I got to show them my references. So, along those lines. And so, everything in its place. And I constantly see that every moment is new with me. And I go over this with many people, even Ava. Ava will bring things up about this or that, and I go, or we should have been funded in the past. I go, I know, Ava, but you know what? That's the past. This is now, and I don't want to go over that because it's now. So I keep moving ahead, you might say. In other words, I keep doing something and looking at things the best that I can with what exists in the world, what exists here. And we see there's so much going on. There's so much creativity, which is fine. And then we utilize that. And it's so nice to have Kelsey and Val here and others and Chris and whatever and Vesna and just everybody that steps up and does something. Doesn't sit and wonder what to do, but actually does something. Okay, and that's really what it's all about. I wouldn't want a life where I just sit and wonder what to do. Okay, what kind of life is that? That's your life. I like being involved, and I am grateful that I recognize this reality. So, yeah, Charles, those things are interesting references, and I will use those as examples, okay? Not as realities. That becomes the difference. Because everything that is past from this moment that does not relate to the isness, it is only a reference and not a reality. And those things like tradition, that's why people celebrate Oktoberfest every year and get blitzed because they think it's their reality. Well, that's their chosen reality. It is not a reality. It is something you agree to. It's just an idea. And as soon as you walk away from it, what is it? It's just an old reference. So again, these old references, again, that's all they are. I don't see them as realities. But people try to uphold them, hold them up as something they're not. You see, that becomes the difference. So this is where the keenness of your awareness comes in, and you are the decider. How are you going to decide this? Just like you as the teacher in school, how are you going to provide the lessons for the students that make sense overall, not just sound good stuff? And it's like my former wife, who was a school teacher, second, third grader. And I would say to her, she was very proud of the fact she was a teacher. And I say, yeah, that's great, you're a teacher, but what are you teaching these kids? Yeah, she pivoted off of the idea that, oh, I'm the teacher. See, it's like that's all that's important. But no, she loved the kids. She was very creative. She really helped them along. But at the same time, that became first for her, and actually the children became secondary. See, I could go do that too. I could go get a good job, make money, be a teacher. I could do that. But I won't do it because now I have to obey the system and I have to teach what the system wants. And you know what? I'd rather risk my life and present this that makes sense because we only have so much time. And guess what? When the time's up, just like Miriam's experience with the watches, time's up. You ain't got no more time. Time's up. And you had made your decisions. You had the opportunity to do anything in your life you wanted. But time's up. And it's coming. So again, this is where I focus. And so there is a difference, Charles, between that being a reference, what Paul went through, and trying to make it into a reality that it is not. You see?
Okay, then thank you.
You're wearing me out, Charles, but I'm fine with it.
No, when you explain like this, one becomes more grounded, or maybe others already are, but I gain a lot from these explanations, and in my own little sphere, I expand on what you've said, and it makes me more comfortable. In fact.
I get it. I understand it. Hey, I'm the same way. We're all hard on each
Yeah.
other, and the thing is that yes, you really do want it, and you have that literal part of yourself. You're very strong literally, and see, there's the wrestle. We wrestle with ourselves, but eventually we start to see it. You see, and this is where the personal self kind of steps back a little bit. Yeah, that literal part of ourself. I have a strong literal part too. I see that. I confront it. But at the same time, I see what's real and what makes sense. That's all. And this is the fun part. And that is taking on the challenge of everything and making sense of it and seeing it for what it really is. You see? There's the simplicity. And yes, you're going to deal with the complexity. But when you decide to confront everything, that's the best part. It's not trying to, you might say, settle it to where it's not what it is. Yeah, in other words, taking an issue just like you brought up about Paul's past. How many people are, write books and whatever describing Doug Mormon and all these other people describing Paul's life and almost trying to justify whatever those experiences were. And heck, he wasn't having the experiences. He was an onlooker. So again, I use things as a reference. But the best part is to, in some way, with that reference, bring it around to the reality of what is now. Not what was then, trying to figure it out and to compensate or whatever. Hey, when people say that Paul plagiarized, I admit it. I say, yes, he did. He purposely did that. Yeah, I'm not trying to hide it or schmooze over it or give excuses or whatever. I don't care what they say. I'll admit to it. Fine. Yeah, Paul did 9/11. Fine, whatever. Yeah, he did that too. What the hell does it matter? All that matters is seeing the isness. And when you decide that, then it shines within you because it recognizes what you're doing. So when you're willing to stand up and confront everything and figure it out and sort it out for people that are looking, well, then the isness, it recognizes that, you see, because that's all it can do. It cannot work along the lines of what you fabricate to be something that it's not or have a relationship to it. It can't work along those lines, you might say. You can't get the sun to shine in the forest unless you start chopping down some of the trees so that it can. You have to make the effort that becomes possible. And so it is not going to do it. You cannot bend life according to what you decide. And this is where you let go and you let life show you instead of deciding what life is, but at the same time being creative with it. And what is it that relates to this reality that makes sense in the best manner that you can recognize? And it recognizes that you're making the effort to do that. Just like an adult recognizes their children and that they're trying to walk for the first time. You see? But if the child is not trying to walk, what can the adult do? Drag the child around until it whines and cries and says, I don't want to walk? Can't do that, because then it becomes all this drama. And so is it that the sun can make us see what it is demonstrating? No, we have to decide to see what it is demonstrating, you see? So there's the fine line. And look at the world. What is the world worshiping, even though they don't think they are? They're worshiping old ideas that they're trying to keep alive that really make no sense at all with anything, but they just sound good. Just like Harry on stage and the politicians and the presidents making all those speeches. Realistically, what do they do? What do these people do? They do nothing. They activate nothing. They keep people asleep and duh. That's what they do. They don't want to activate things. They want people to stay the same. Me, I bother everybody. But it's part of the wake up. And once they see it, boy, are they glad. Those that do, most won't. Well, it's not my choice. It's theirs. Just like, again, Chris joining the service, the Marines. I'm sure he didn't think it was going to be La La Land. I don't think they were going to give him a condo like in Private Benjamin. I don't think he was thinking that. It was hell and high water, but it was a huge wake up for him. And I would say the end result is that it was a huge benefit. But you got to go through it. You got to confront it. And that is that's what I recommend, is to confront everything that seems to be something and then figure it out and learn to see that it is not. And that's the best part, because that's your relationship. You need to see what isn't real to eventually recognize what is real. And again, that is not at all part of any curriculum or spiritual path or religion or politics. Not at all. They are the so-called absolute in their one-dimensional minds, that what they're doing is absolutely right, and these are the people destroying everything in the world. So you decide. So I'd rather take the risk.
Okay, Duane, thank you. Mm. Yeah, Duane, the real guides are there, and it may happen that you want to tell. I don't know whether to say tell them, or because they are not deaf. The real guides are life itself, but it may come to a point where you want to tell the real guide something, either just in your mind or as a wish, or as a kind of earnest hope that you have. And I find that this falls in line with prayer. So could it be that we can also do prayer, but not in the kind of the kind of ridiculous way that the religions do it? Because I find that these earnest hopes, wishes, and maybe petitions, if it is just a temporary thought or anything, it is some form of prayer. So can we also say that we pray?
Well, now you're scaring me, Charles, and that is that here's the idea, and I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's look at this, and this is good. Okay, again, it's the old ancient ways, and prayer and worship is, this is designed by the Cabal, One World Order reptilians. This has been their modus operandi. This has been their method to keep the public unaware, dumbed down, and controlled. Okay, so much for worship and prayer. So if you want a substitute for that, I see what you're saying. You want a substitute for that in relationship to what we're doing, and we already have it. And that is where you activate something that makes sense with the all-natural environment supporting us. You see? There it is. You already have it. So, do we need to sit and worship and pray or think about things or whatever? Your real relationship with the real guides in life is an isness, okay? In other words, you will see and know what to do. Isn't that cool? Just like you with your job. You already know what to do. You already see what's taking place. See, so why would we need any references according to the controlling system? See, the new presentation has its own position. Yes, we're in the world, but we're not in agreement with the systems. In other words, we work with the systems. We have a driver's license. We drive on the roads. We got to obey things. We don't throw trash on the street, etc. We stop at the stop signs. We pay our taxes once in a while. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we work accordingly to whatever we're doing. But we are not in agreement, but we don't negate them. Just because we're not in agreement doesn't mean we negate them. Just like the animals running around, the birds, they're not negating the government. But the government can say is like, oh, the birds don't like us because, they're not voting for the Democratic or Republican Party. Anybody can make that idea up. But that's silly, of course. But, again, look at all the silly ideas that exist. But for us, Charles, when you start creating ideas along those lines, I would say, instead of trying to find middle ground between prayer and worship of the controlling cabal systems that are taplining and ruining people's lives completely, I would say hop over the fence into a position of just like a farmer, out there in the field, working the field, who is not concerned about the 6 o'clock news and the system and whatever, but simply doing that, working with the natural environment and making sense of his life. And that's what we're doing. I don't see any sitting on the fence looking back and forth one way or the other. The farmer sees what's on the other side of the fence. He's not interested. He's only interested in what makes sense, and that's real survival. And this is really what people forget. It's not about lifestyle. It's not about how happy you will be and the pleasures and the comforts that you're going to accumulate, etc. And if people like you or not or whatever on Facebook, or even if you don't do Facebook, okay? We went through all that in high school. It's really about survival. It's really about waking up. It's really about what makes sense. And does any of that they're doing with the systems, any of it, make sense? Do the birds need it? Again, look at the sun shining. I always use the sun as a reference. And look at the birds. Do they care about any of this nonsense? No. They're into survival. And that's what we're doing. We're showing people how to really survive. And we're questioned, about it. Fine. Question us. We'll give you answers. And if you ask funny questions, we'll give you funny answers. Yeah, that's the way I look at it sometimes. You give me a funny question, I give you a funny answer. And then they wonder, why are you saying that? Well, why are you asking me? It's right in front of you. It's obvious, isn't it? You're eating every day. You're breathing every day. You drink water, right? Those are the three basics right there. Do you see what you're really doing? So, again, when we're presenting the new presentation, which is just an idea, formulation for people to relate to, they're actually doing all these things already, but they're really not seeing what they're doing. And then from there, a step at a time. So, even these words are kind of weird, prayer and worship and whatever, and even to relate to them in any way, no, I won't even consider them. I mean, that is something other people are doing, like witchcraft. That's all worship and prayer are. It's witchcraft. It's voodoo. And if people want to do that, hey, go do it. Have fun. I see that stepping up and doing something that makes sense with the natural environment that's being destroyed every day makes sense. And who has the courage to do that? Most people are afraid. You know what they do? They just shove their head in the ground in the business world thinking that, oh, I'm making all this money, I have a great life, I don't really need to consider that. Well, eventually your so-called good life, your fabricated life will become nothing, but that's no big deal. That's not really the issue. The issue is that you will not have educated yourself to wake up to when the moment comes, when the fabrication, folds in on itself, because you're going to wonder what the hell to do, because guess what? You have no awareness of what to do. It's all about your real awareness. It really is. So yes, I see the wake up as very vital, and that it's either one side or the other, or you can sit on the fence and you can be nowhere. You could be undecided. What's that old saying? A double-minded man is unstable in all ways. And it's very, very, very true. It's like, oh, I like this girl, but really I like that girl more, but maybe I like this girl more. Okay? So again, Yeah, and it's like an investment too. Oh, gee, should I go this way or should I go this way? Should I go with Schwab or should I go with Oppenheimer? What should I do? You're on the fence. And so I see that with what I've experienced for myself, this is just my experience, that is that I'm very decisive, and that I see these other things that I've come through as references. Um, they don't work in the new nowness life is. Again, the sun's shining. I don't see worship, prayer. I don't even see happiness. I don't even see joy. I don't even see thrills. I don't see any of that, because I see the isness supersedes all of that. But those are personal things. Hey, go have it. Go have fun. And most people, they overdo it so much they get lost in it. Hey, go get lost in it. Have fun. Like the love thing. Go have fun. I don't see that with the isness. I see what's real. That's real survival. You see, Charles, again, now compare that with everything that's going on in the world and look at all the distortion. And does it make sense to agree with any of these things and where they lead, which is nowhere? Again, people are looking for comfort zones. Well, then go look someplace else. Again, when people talk about and they make statements about their gods or their saviors, I say, hey, go pray to your gods. Fine, go do it. Once they've made that statement, it's like, go do it. So it's a choice. But all life is real survival. And I don't see any survival with even the hint of prayer or worship to anything. It's a matter of isness and doing. In creation, it's doing. In the true reality life is, it's an isness to be recognized. And you don't need questions because it's complete. You simply stand real with the boys and you recognize what is real. And if you decide to play a role in creation, you know what to do. That's the fun part. That's the adventure. That's what we're on here. And so again, this is where the confrontation and the wake up comes. So that makes sense. So I don't see where any of these ideas that have been in the past, any of them, refer to the new presentation. That's why I've created my own language, etc. You see? You might say, and references accordingly. And if people, they need to take the time to recognize it, just like when you go to school. If you're gonna do trigonometry, that's a toughie. I wouldn't even tackle that. It's boring nonsense like algebra was. Okay, go do it. The end result is, what does it equal? Okay, but those are toughies, and people, they spend their whole life trying to figure out E equals MC squared. Well, go do it. The end result will be really nothing compared to the isness life is. But they can decide it. So worship and prayer, that's on the big voodoo list, even considering that. And so in the beginning, when Paul first started this, he just wanted his idea was to get people out of their bodies, to have them recognize that they're more than a physical body. This is where he was doing astral projection at first. That was the first step. There was no worship and prayer involved. It was an actuality. That's why he first called it the ancient science of soul travel, and most people don't know that. I was there. ASOST, Ancient Science of Soul Travel, Eckankar ASOST. That was the original. I have my little membership card somewhere. And it's all said that with Paul's picture on it, and the 5 little stars that you put on there with your initiations, etc. And that's what it was. He was providing, you might say, a science. And what is the idea of science? Science is a proof of something in our physical, literal sense. And that's what he was doing. He was showing people how to prove to themselves that you're more than just a body. And so there was no worship and prayer with any of that. But he used the different spiritual God means whatever as a reference to create a foundation to get things going. He could not, you might say he really could not present the isness at that time because it's way too much. Hey, that was the 60s, 50s and 60s. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that's the caveman era, realistically, compared to where we are now with possibilities. of what is taking place now. So that's huge, huge, that has taken place in the last 50 years since he was here. But that was then, this is now. This is the best of all times, to recognize this isness. And again, can't make people do it. But we have everything available like never before. Just take advantage of what is available now. And so people that are asking the question, I would say that, hey, you don't have to ask the questions. We already have the answer, and guess what's even better than that? You have the answer for yourself. Start gaining your own experiences with the new you. Start figuring out and listen to the Skype groups and whatever. Listen to the experiences of others, and you figure it out and you decide if they're real or not. But anything that relates, I look at everything that the old idea of spiritual soul, God, worship, prayer, any of these things, no, have nothing to do with any of them. Or on the other side of the fence, it's very real. Just like the universes, the real universes in creation, I have made a definite position there, just like I decided the 7th level, because the 5th level was not working anymore. Now it's subliminal, it's the subconscious level, and it really is. And so there is a definite, you see, you have to decide, and just like your job, there is a definite that is there. There's no wishy-washiness. Everything is very well defined there, and you want it defined. You really do. Yeah, you really want it defined. That would be like looking at a map if you're driving somewhere, and on the map it says, well, you can go this way or that way, and you might get there. You want a map like that? No, you want a definite. And so this isness that life is, it's so real. It scares me too. It's just so real because it's endless. It's not really something to be afraid of, but it's overwhelming. And that's what's so cool about it, that it shocks you. It shocks you. And that's how life is. It's a shock. And creation, if this isn't a shock enough, you're standing in poison, you're eating poison, you're breathing poison, and you're in a world of idiots that don't care about you and are trying to destroy you. Gee, is that a wake-up, or is that a hint for you? Or do you like this place? You want a lifestyle here? Have fun. Yeah, so again, worship and prayer, that's number 1 on the voodoo list. I wouldn't even try and relate to that. That is that where we decide to do something wonderful that makes sense. I would say that's a lot better idea to look to, Charles. But thank you for asking.